Hi,
Cool.
Ashley. Nice to have you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I'm here with Ashley Hamm. She's a licensed professional counselor, and I'm going to have her introduce herself in just a bit. But what we are going to be talking about today is anxiety and the tips and tricks that we know to help prevent or lower our anxiety. So, Ashley, do you mind introducing yourself?
Sure, yeah, I'm a licensed professional counselor. I'm also a certified clinical anxiety treatment professional, and I love helping people with anxiety and burnouts. Um,
Awesome. And that's why we have you on today, because you know a lot about this. And I every single time I talk to you, I feel like I learned something new about anxiety and different tips and tricks that are helpful. So I really appreciate you being on. So let's kind of just dive into the subject. First of all, what is anxiety? Like what what is it that we're actually feeling? Like what's going on there?
yeah. So, anxiety is really it can be cluster of things that happen with us that what sort of emerges in us as a result of kind of like encountering something threatening or fearful. And so we might feel it in our body. We might feel like our tightness in our chest or our heart racing. We might feel it in our mind with like our racing thoughts, or we might have trouble concentrating, or we might have intrusive thoughts where we just see really disturbing images or really disturbing thoughts that further stress us out. So it can be a whole cluster of things that sort of are how we react to things that bother us or that worry us.
Sure. Like one of the things that you mentioned there makes me think of one of the things that I try to provide within my within counseling others is like a body scan, kind of going over where are you feeling your tension, where are you feeling this anxiety, what are your symptoms is really important to just identify, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
first tip, identify it, right? Like identify the
Definitely.
way that we're feeling. So I think
Yeah.
like that is so important. And then the other thing that you kind of start to talk about a little bit is this freeze, go for it, or freeze. My mind is not working today. So freeze, flight and
Fight or
fright
flight.
and
Yeah.
freeze. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I don't know why that took so much energy to get off my tongue. Yeah, so tell me, like, what's going on when that happens?
Mm-hmm. So that's sort of our body's biological way of responding to anything that's threatening to us. And one way I like to think about it is it's sort of a primitive thing within us. It's sort of the way we evolved as very early humans to deal with danger. And so we kind of have these really quick kind of reactions of like, I'm either going to fight the danger, I'm going to run away from it, or I'm going to freeze and hope the danger passes. And so that's what's kind of like happening in our body. And that's why there's so much of a physical reaction in terms of feeling tense or feeling like that adrenaline racing through you is kind of because of that fight, flight, or freeze reaction that we're having.
Yeah. And I also think there's something to say for like positive and negative anxiety because
Mm-hmm.
this is a natural response, you know, part
Mm-hmm.
of it is a healthy way of responding to the world and the around us. And
Yeah.
so it can be healthy for us to have a little bit of anxiety. For instance, like going up on stage or doing something that you've never done before can
Mm-hmm.
cause maybe anxiousness inside of you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, for instance, like when I'm talking in front of groups, like I get sweaty palms, or you know, maybe my heart starts to beat a little bit faster as well. You know that like
Yeah.
that also provides adrenaline to kind of
Mm-hmm.
get us through that moment as well. Um, but what do you think about positive versus negative anxiety?
Yeah, I think our natural tendency sometimes is if we feel that tightness in our chest or that tension, our initial urge is to fix it, right? There's something wrong. I'm anxious. I'm stressed out. I've got to fix it. And I think, like what you say, is it is sort of a natural part of our process. And so we don't always have to fix it. You know, it can sort of be just a natural thing that comes about, especially when we do things that are important to us, like speak in front of people, or if something important is involved. Like I think that's when we think about the pandemic, we're thinking about our own personal safety and the people we love. That's really important to us. And, I can sometimes have a little appreciation for my anxiety for protecting me, for saying, hey, maybe you should wear that mask when you go out. That's my anxiety kind of having my back and saying like, let's take this seriously. It can sort of run away with itself and create all sorts of scary scenarios. But if I didn't have my anxiety, I'd sort of, I wouldn't be able to take care of myself, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, we would just be bumps on a log, not moving, right?
Yeah.
So okay, so now we're having these feelings. We were able to
Mhm.
identify them. We're able to identify our symptoms. What do we do about it? What types of tips do you have for this?
Yeah, so I think one thing is that I find really helpful is how to work with those mental things that happen, the images that pop into our head, the scary images, or the thoughts, the worries that seem like they just uh, race through our head and kind of take us out of the present moment. Is sort of like, how do I deal with those thoughts? And one thing I like to do is a strategy called thanking the mind. And so it's sort of when I feel hear those scary stories, in my head of like something terrible is going to happen, your worst fear is going to come true, is I like to thank thanks mind for trying to protect me. I sort of have a little friendly dialogue with my mind of saying like, thanks for trying to throw out all these possible ways things can go wrong. But I don't really need that right now. I'm going to focus on what's important to me right now. And so I'm going to let those thoughts come and go. I'm not trying to like shove them away because you can almost get into like your own battle with the thoughts if you're trying to make them go away. But a little bit more like a friendly, like, all right, I'm going to let you kind of fade to the background while I focus on what's important to me.
I really love this tip, and this is our second take on doing this. So this kind of, I'm glad I'm hearing it again because I really like it. Because one, it's adding in that skill of gratitude,
Mm,
which so often I think, especially when I'm working with people, with clients that have anxiety, there's this lack of gratitude for the self, and it's
mm,
that inner critic as well that can sometimes um, really turn one small little thought into this larger cloud almost. And so like
mhm.
I think that's super important, to have appreciation for the self,
Yeah.
for who we are. Gratitude, oh my gosh, that it is so good. I've actually done a gratitude journal and I actually have a
Mm,
video on doing that. And one of the things that I noticed and that was super helpful, I was just having a rotten day. And I just sat down and I wrote three things that I was just thankful for. Uh,
mhm,
and when I did it, I would do it for uh, what did I do? The self,
mm,
something about yourself, something about somebody else, or and
mhm.
then something about a thing, you know. So it kind of gave more direction. Person, place, and thing is what I
Oh,
did.
cool.
Self.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I can see that being like I love adding that element into the brain and the thought process too. I would have
Mhm,
never thought to do that.
mm.
Um, what else? What else? What other little tips, tricks do you have up your sleeve?
Let's see. Um, I really love things that help us. So, I said earlier, we don't want to get into this kind of habit of trying to fix our anxiety, right? Like it's sort of a natural process. But I think one thing we can do is be supportive of ourselves when we have anxiety, and we can do things that soothe us, that make us feel a little better, that tell us that we're safe. Because the sort of fight or flight system, when it's set off, it's sort of telling us, it's sending alarm signals that we're not safe. And so we can do a few things to kind of help tell that alarm system you're firing at a time when it's not really needed. So taking slow, deep breaths can be really helpful. Doing things that sort of help you remind yourself of the present moment. So if you're kind of caught up in a worry of the future of some terrible thing is going to happen, it's sort of like reminding yourself, I'm safe right now. So I love kind of like can I press my feet into the floor? Or like, can I,
I'm gonna do it right now
yeah, yeah.
as you're talking about it.
Or can I like tense and release my fists? It's kind of like, is like, okay, I'm here. I have over my what I do. You know, I may feel stuck in my head and stuck in this anxiety, but I still have the freedom to kind of go about my day and do what's important to me. You know, I still have the choice to um, choose what I put my attention to and how I spend my energy in my life. Um,
That technique, I kind of I utilize the word zone of control, but it's kind of
mm,
like that's what I have control over.
mhm,
I am able to bring myself back into the here and now. Um, and one technique that I like, which is another mindfulness technique, is using our five senses and like
mhm.
taking that and combining all these techniques can
Yeah.
sometimes be fun too, like the gratitude, connecting with the thoughts and uh, the also the being able to use the five senses and take deep breaths as you're thinking of the five senses. And then
Mhm,
using gratitude to thank your senses too. What a
mhm.
wonderful thing to like connect all of these, which is
Yeah, yeah.
so awesome.
Mhm.
Even as you were sitting here, I'm planting my feet on the ground and taking in a deep breath too, just to kind of ground
Mhm.
myself in what I'm thinking for the next question even.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you can do it anywhere, right? Nobody knows that you're pushing your feet in the floor, but you're kind of having a little mental break, a little kind of moment for yourself to kind of reset. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that. Okay, what seems to be working best for your clients during COVID at this time as well?
Yeah.
Kind
I
of
think
a unprecedented event, right?
yeah, yeah.
So,
So I think one thing that's really huge is sort of being a little bit more gentle with ourselves. So I think, you know, when we're stuck in stress and anxiety, we tend to be really harsh on ourselves. We tend to kind of say like, you should be handling this better, or you shouldn't be so anxious. Look at how weak you are. You know, like that's just a tendency that our mind tends to do is kind of go to this harsh side of things. And so are there ways we can sort of at least drop the stress of being hard on ourselves because that's adding stress. And so I think sort of what can I give myself permission uh, to do maybe less of right now? Am I and asking yourselves, am I holding myself to a standard like a pre-pandemic standard? You know, like maybe a productivity standard that I was meeting before, or maybe I was taking care of myself better, like exercising more often. Like things might be different right now, and so it's sort of like asking yourself, am I holding myself to an unreasonable standard? You know, am I giving myself credit for I'm under a lot of stress right now? And there's no roadmap for how to deal with this. So can I sort of, yeah, give myself permission to take breaks and,
uh,
you
yeah,
know,
I love
stuff like
that. I
that.
love managing that inner critic, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all have it. There's something inside of us that is telling us one thing or another, you know, and being able to focus on that positive self-talk and is such a valuable thing. So
Mm-hmm.
for reminding us of that as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Ashley, you're so good at this.
Thanks.
um, so on a more personal note, and I
Uh-huh.
always ask clinicians when they come onto my channel, what is your favorite self-care activity that you like to do for yourself?
Yeah. So I have two favorites. One is I love getting out in nature. So I love kind of just really being able to disconnect. I think in Houston we got a lot of like noisy traffic city life stuff going on. It's nice to kind of get out somewhere quiet, see the trees. That helps with that bringing me into the present moment. And then I love kind of escaping into reading is another kind of self care I love is kind of going into a fictional world and getting swept away in it.
Yeah. Once again, some more tips, right? Like just did the self-care. I think you gave us some more things to kind of contemplate and think about for
Yeah.
ourselves. So, well, Ashley, I really appreciate you coming on today. And how can people find you if they want to look for you somewhere?
Yeah, so they can find me on my website, hamcounseling.com, HAMM counseling.com. I also have a Facebook page since we're going live on Facebook. It's Ashley Hamm LPC, I believe, or Ashley Hamm Houston Counselor. That's
Yeah. I'll make
it.
sure to tag all of those when we're
Yeah,
all done
yeah,
here. But
thanks.
yeah, well, once again, I really appreciate you being on today, and thank you for sharing your little tips and tricks that you
Thanks for
know.
having me. Yeah.
This has been great. All right, well, I'll talk to you later.
All right, thanks.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.